tell the truth, and shame the devil. I love being black. All right, partner?
All right, hold it. Hey, hold it. I'm talking and ain't even got my mic in front of me. Hey. Listen, tell the truth and shame what?
The
Shame the
devil.
devil. Today's show is really going to be a great show, and I'm excited about it. We're talking about know your rights with marijuana, with weed.
Yes.
So we got you ain't just smoking the weed. You got rights with the weed. So you know your rights. So I'm excited because we're here at Teamwork Englewood. So we want to give a shout out to Teamwork Englewood. And let me introduce myself for those that don't know me. It's Vera Giles Norris, officially letting the cat out the bag. Here with my amazing partner, and we have our guest speakers for today. We have AKA Jim, attorney here with Teamwork Englewood. I'm gonna have you introduce yourself, and then we have Marusa, and you an attorney here with Teamwork in Englewood, and I need you to introduce yourself as well,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So, Jim, let me go ahead and have you introduce yourself first.
Yeah, my name's James Long. I've been at Teamwork Englewood for around 7 months now. I mainly work with sealing and expunging people's criminal records to help them get better jobs and housing, just open up opportunities in general.
Okay, all right, Marissa.
Hello. Yep. Marusa here, also in the same department at Teamwork Englewood, and I've been here since about September. So still a little new to the game, but I love it here and love the work that we do.
All right, all right. And so again, we're just jumping right into know your rights as it relate to marijuana. Partner, you got something you want to before we
No,
start?
good. I'm good. Go ahead, guys. I'm here. I'll chime in. We want to talk about marijuana. But let me just say this a little bit. Most people that buy marijuana, they just go buy it off the street.
Off the street, right?
And I've been told, according to the law, now correct me if I'm wrong, that when you buy marijuana, it's supposed to be like in the trunk in the back area, sealed in the original package. See, a lot of us they have it right in the front, it's not supposed to be laid out visible like that. That's what I've been taught. So,
So can you buy marijuana from the weed man?
not really. That's
Oh,
No, you need to
is
go.
that legal?
Yeah.
Little Ray can't sell it.
No.
Okay,
You
so
know the business got to protect their interests. So
okay, so first of all, as it relate to, and you guys got questions, but I just want to
Yeah.
throw one out. What are your rights as far as weed is concerned? If I want to smoke weed, what's the best way for me to go get some weed to smoke?
the dispensary would be the best choice. That's the only legal choice, really. Yeah, it's going to be a little more pricey than what you get on the streets because of the taxes and everything, but and that's the only way you can legally buy it.
Yeah, it's verified if you're getting it through a dispensary. And then in terms of, we obviously know you cannot be smoking it just out on the street. You have to own the residence that you live in. So renters are not allowed to smoke in their apartments. It's like a violation of your lease, if they catch you smoking marijuana, even if it's quote unquote within your home because you're still a renter. So one of the main things is, if you're smoking weed, make sure you're doing it in a house that you actually own or you have the permission of the person who does own that house. And then, yeah, like Jim said, in terms of just purchasing, I think dispensaries are your best option because you get a receipt and you have like legal backing as to where you purchase the marijuana. And I think in terms of possession, you can only have up to, is it an ounce? I think.
I believe so.
Yeah, legally it's an
Right around
ounce.
there.
So 28 grams that you can possess at a time.
Wow. So I'm so confused because, here I am thinking that smoking marijuana is legal now. And, you could just kind of smoke it, whenever you get ready and wherever you get ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
somewhat unfortunately, that's not the case at the moment. You can't smoke in public places, like she was saying. It's basically limited to your home or the home of someone who you have their approval of.
Yeah. And I think there's a misconception because a lot of states have legalized marijuana, but we have to remember that federally it is still not legal. And so there are a lot of ways that the government can kind of lock down on marijuana usage. I mean, even if you go to a dispensary, the process with them checking your ID is super intricate and detailed. I don't know if any of you have experienced that, but you walk in, they check your ID. When you go to purchase, they check your ID. And then if you have a medical card, you have to make sure that the person purchasing the marijuana holds the medical card and they're the ones that have to pay for it. So there's just a lot of implications behind actually possessing it. And the tax is just crazy. I mean, it makes the price like almost double what it actually is. But the quality is pretty decent. So if you can afford it, I think it's a good bet.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask a question. Now, what about I see a lot of people rolling up marijuana sitting in the bus terminal.
Yeah.
I see it all the time.
I know.
I mean, just like it did, just
I do too.
Yeah, we did see this even before it was legalized,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's been on the uptick since then. Not everyone, understands the full legality of what's allowed and what's not. So you see a lot of people go into those gray areas.
Yeah. I think it's a matter of like, am I going to get caught doing this or not? Because there is guaranteed somebody smoking weed every day on my train going back home. So, people are out there doing it. They're out there rolling and smoking on the trains. But I really think it's just a matter of if you feel like you can afford to take that risk. But it's not the safest bet because you definitely can face some consequences for smoking in outdoor spaces like that.
Wow.
Now also too as well. Now, what if an officer pull me over and I'm smoking marijuana? That's against the law too as well.
Yes.
All right, people. It's just like drinking and driving.
Yeah.
So they bringing the information to attorneys. They tell us what the laws are. Now you can do whatever you want to do, but this is the law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the police, with all these situations, we know how their discretion, can't be used. So these incidents will more likely than not affect people of color more than others. So definitely need to be careful.
Okay, so now, and I'm probably going backwards, but as far as the dispensary, because I've heard, and I know we're sticking on the law part of it, but the dispensary, what type of legal rights do they have to make sure that that the weed that they're selling is safe for the consumer? Is there laws with that?
I know it's regulated pretty highly. Things need to be tested. I don't know the exact details of the requirements for the businesses and testing, but there are definitely regulations in place to prevent them from adding anything or like mold getting in there or anything like that.
Right. Okay, just making sure that it's safe overall. Yeah, I guess that's my weed concern.
Yeah. And there's a lot of implications in terms of like obtaining a license to actually distribute marijuana. So I know dispensaries that are opening up in the city have to go through a very large procedure to just make sure that, they pass all of those regulations to actually open up a dispensary, because there's quite a few in the city of Chicago now and they're spread out. And you'll see that a lot of those dispensaries are selling the same type of brand, like Cresco.
I got a question
High
to ask.
Supply.
Now,
Yeah.
are there any black owned yet? Because as far as I know,
Yeah.
it's
So,
one. Okay, let me hear
It's a
it.
black-owned dispensary
where at?
in Bolingbrook, allegedly to my understanding.
Okay,
I've not ever been in a dispensary before. I'm not a weed smoker,
right.
but to my understanding, and I'm going to do my investigation today, that there is a black-owned dispensary in Bolingbrook.
Okay, because I haven't known one that exists yet, but
Yeah.
I mean I could be
know
wrong.
In the legalization process, they were trying to get minority owners to participate more, but they didn't have much luck with that. They were also trying to get people who actually were affected by the marijuana laws prior.
Of course, there's black people.
There
you
was
know?
there was almost none of those people involved. So
Right.
they didn't really succeed in that aspect.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's real talk. What else I see? People, I see them on the CTA bus terminal. So we know you can't drive and smoke weed.
Yeah.
The weed's supposed to be placed in the back, right, in the sealed package.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me help my people. I got to help my people out a little bit.
Oh, I wanted to mention one thing. Actually, medical people with medical cards
Yeah.
do have a right to grow, which is somewhat interesting. Most states do allow
5
that.
plants is it?
I believe it is 5.
5,
It's
yeah.
either 3 or 5.
5,
yes.
yeah.
So that eliminates some of the street vendors as well, and takes some of the worry about what's in there out of it since you're growing it yourself. So that was a major benefit to the law. But they most states also allow recreational users to grow, and we were one of the only ones who didn't. I think the only other state that does not allow growing is Washington, and that was because they were one of the first ones to do so. So they kind of remained conservative with what they initially pushed.
So maybe show.
I got a question. I have a question. Kenneth Wacker said, since weed is legal, can a job still drug test you on a job?
That's part of what we wanted to talk about.
Okay,
today.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a
Okay,
perfect
I'm gonna let you guys do
little
that. I'm sorry.
No, that's that's a
Okay,
perfect
okay.
question.
Okay, I just wanted to get that question. Go ahead, Barry. I know you had
No,
something.
no.
Yeah.
Go ahead because I was
Okay.
answer the question,
Yeah.
please.
Okay, yeah, Illinois already has some protections, but they're looking at further protections, and there's a bill that was sponsored by State Senator Robert Peters from the 13th District, and it provides that employers may not refuse to hire an individual or discipline an employee based on the results of a drug test with THC. But the employer is still allowed to have a drug testing policy in general, and they just can't have an adverse action, meaning they can't be disciplined for a positive drug test for marijuana alone.
And to be clear, this is still a bill that's being, decided on. It has not passed.
Okay.
So the Senate has its first reading February 10th. The fact that they did have their first reading February 10th of 2023, and it's just now been reassigned to Senator Robert Peters. And so as of January 10th of this month, 2024. So this is kind of being pushed and moved along. We don't really know what the result is of this legislation yet, but it would be positive if it was passed just because it really amends the right to somebody's privacy in the workplace. And there's like a lot of implications for it. One of them being like the usage and the amount of cannabis can't exceed limits that are set forth in like the Illinois Motor Vehicle Code. So I kind of tried to look those up. I mean, it's hard to determine cannabis usage by the amounts that they give you because they're talking in the code, they're talking about if you test higher for a concentration of 5 nanograms or more in your bloodstream. 5 nanograms or more is pretty easy to obtain. Per this article that I found, this professor said that when you smoke cannabis, you can reach upwards of 100 nanograms per millimeter within 15 minutes of smoking it.
Ooh.
So 0 to 5 nanograms would be really easily detectable. So there's very loose concepts
Ooh.
in terms
Marijuana
of.
stays in your system longer than
Wow.
basically every drug, so that could be from a couple days prior even.
It attaches to your fat, so it's fat cells, so it's a lot harder to metabolize.
I want to say something. This is what I want to say. I remember I was talking to Mark, and Mark was telling me when an officer pull you over, and he asks questions. I smell weed, and once you say it's legal, they got you. So,
I mean, it's not right there in admittance, but it's pretty close.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
You don't want to stray into that territory.
Yeah,
where
that
you're
concept
giving
of,
police a reason to suspect you even more.
Yeah,
Right.
probable cause. They
Yeah.
kind of they smell that odor, so it gives them something.
So we're not going to even pretend like we know the law.
Yeah.
It's legal.
Yeah.
And and I know someone that literally just wasn't able to get a job because they didn't pass the test. So
Oh, interesting. Do you know what type of employment it was?
I want to say it was a railroad job.
Okay. Yeah, I was
A
assuming
lot of
with
jobs
transportation.
that have safety concerns,
Yeah.
they tend to test.
And I don't know if they was going to be
And-
driving, I don't know what
you
they were.
still work around
And
machine.
that might
Right around
actually
there,
be somewhat regulated by the federal government since it's the railroad, and
Okay.
they have more stringent
Okay.
restrictions than most states.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing. I don't want nobody doing surgery on me.
Yeah.
of no type of drug, marijuana, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing right there. You're right.
Or flying an airplane or something.
Yeah. No, I.
Drive-
Well, that's kind of interesting. I actually wrote a paper in law school about this subject, and there's the studies on whether it affects people and the impairment are very mixed. Like the National Highway Traffic Association, they said that it does contribute to the impairment of skills, but they never saw accidents increase because of it. And in the workplace, they've actually seen fewer accidents in some of these studies with people who were using it. So there's a lot of mixed evidence on this.
Wow.
Well, I'm like Martin, be in your right state of mind, because smoking weed. But you know what? There are people who feel as though weed helped them become a higher self of
Yeah,
consciousness.
there's a lot of the
more alert, more
medicinal
aware.
uses for it, so it could help those people in those situations. Like one of the studies, they're particularly looking at people from age 40 to 62. Most of them were dealing with like pain management, so it just gave them another way to deal with it, and that allowed them to be more productive at their jobs because they weren't focusing on the pain.
So I got a question, you guys. I know you guys did a lot of research on this. Now, suppose a conceal and carry. Now,
Okay. Oh, like if you mix the two
yeah.
type of thing? Oh man.
Ooh, that's
Right.
how many times they limit you to go to the dispensary, you conceal and carry it.
Yeah.
So that's
And
something to think
I
about.
think it's a law. I think it's some kind of um, law with having a conceal and
Conceal
carry and how many times you can go to the dispensary, or I don't know.
Maybe
You
guys
guys tell
can-
me.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if
Well,
it's something in place
I can
about
look that up.
Okay,
having-
please look that
I'm
up.
not
Conceal and
aware of
carry.
that offhand, so
Yeah,
we'd have to look.
because I
that
heard
up.
something about that. I got a friend that he's a conceal and carry,
Mhm.
and he was telling me he can't have both of them in his possession.
Okay.
Now, either he have to carry his gun or leave the weed at home or smoke the weed, and put the
Right.
gun up. So that I do know.
So it says on July 9th, 2013, it kind of talks about the law with the concealed carry. If you possess a medical marijuana license and or otherwise use cannabis consistent with Illinois law, your FOID card or CCL will not be revoked, nor will your application be denied.
Wow.
What a medical,
But
though.
it's medical. Yeah.
That's medical.
Spec-
Well, it
specifically
also
with medical.
didn't say and or like the based on the other laws, which
And
would
or
be
otherwise use,
legalization in
yeah,
general.
consistent with Illinois law.
Yeah, so recreational use is consistent with Illinois law.
Yeah. However, under federal law, you are subject to restrictions that prohibit you from acquiring or possessing firearms and firearm ammunition. These restrictions are pursuant to the Gun Control Act of 1968 and will remain in effect until the revocation of your medical cannabis card or until at least 1 year after your last used cannabis.
I believe that's just saying that it's not an automatic disqualifier, but there
Okay.
still could be restrictions like what you were saying. So
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure on the details there.
Okay. Well, we
Yeah.
just give. One of the people said, Kenneth Watkins. He said, I got charged with an aggravated DUI because I didn't have my license. They didn't find the weed, but they smelled it. And was that possible for them to do that to me? Because I did 2 years probation for that.
Wow.
Oh, we had an attorney. He should have had fought that with an attorney.
Yeah, it sounds like that's just really weak evidence.
Yeah.
An
Mhm.
attorney should have challenged that.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of these ones with driving, I feel like can get really tricky.
Okay.
Because people will smoke weed and then they'll drive and maybe think like, oh, I couldn't get pulled over, or I'm okay to drive. So I think just like more proceed on the side of caution when you're consuming marijuana and then getting behind a vehicle.
Right. And with the smell, it's like even if you just like went to the dispensary, bought a good amount, had it in the car, it might still reek up your car later. So you might
Mhm.
not had any, not even used it, not, had it in the car at the time, but it would still smell like it.
Still smell like it, right?
Yeah, it has a strong odor.
But I would
so-
admit, I don't smell anything, officer. I'm sorry.
Right.
It's like, I don't know what you
You can't
smell.
smell through the body cam. Seriously.
Yeah, no,
I'm like,
that's true.
you kidding me? You smell weed? I don't smell.
Yeah.
That's just me. I'm not telling y'all a lie, but
Well, if you don't smell it, you don't smell it.
Yeah.
It's like I can't smell,
Yeah.
right? So, is there anything else that you can just think of that for people that's watching and that's consumers?
Let me think.
What would you just let somebody know as far as this is something you need to know?
I think to just direct people to the history of like drug use in general and its being outlawed in this country. It follows a similar pattern with every drug that they end up outlawing. Like opium was linked with Chinese immigrant workers, and that's the reason basically the government took action on that. Like before that, the Sears catalogs used to offer heroin in a syringe in like a nice handsome carrying case.
Oh, wow.
You had Coca-Cola putting unprocessed coca leaves into their drink. You had cocaine sold in over-the-counter stores. And then with cannabis, it was basically only became illegal once they started associating it with Mexican immigrants. And that's part of the reason we call it marijuana. That's the term that they use for cannabis is its technical name.
okay.
And so, yeah, once they started associating with Mexican immigrants and Black Americans, it became easier for them to convince politicians to do something about it because it lets them control them, basically. And I'm not sure how many people are aware of John Ehrlichman, but he was Nixon's White House counsel and chief domestic advisor. He was on an interview and he said, quote, "The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and Black people. You understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or Black. But by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And what is that
Conspiracy.
again?
That's a quote from John Ehrlichman, who was Richard Nixon's White House counsel and chief domestic advisor.
And if we remember correctly, Nixon started the war on drugs, was
Yeah.
a big spearhead for that whole movement. So I would say, just as an overall caution, even despite marijuana being legalized in Illinois, it's just better to be really safe with the way that you consume it, especially where you consume it. Because I know there's like a lot of people you catch just smoking weed on the street. I'll walk past someone and I'm like, oh, I know they're smoking weed,
Mhm.
because the smell
Right.
really, really lingers.
Get on the
So-
elevator, you can smell it.
Oh yeah. You can like douse yourself with all the perfume and cologne in the world, but you know that it still stays on you. So,
What would you say to college students?
oh man, college students.
Not much different besides they need to watch themselves more, just because, you know, young people are often targeted by the police
Right.
more than
Yeah.
I see grammar school children smoking weed.
Yeah.
I see it all the time.
And it can really just affect and implicate a lot of your future if you get caught with it like that, especially at a young age. Especially in college, I had some people I knew back in college who received a lot of disciplinary actions for consuming marijuana. And that ironically was all like they received some disciplinary actions. And I went to college in Texas. So you can imagine that I assumed that they would be a lot stricter on that stuff, but you really never know what can happen. It just depends on who's charging you and like what type
That's
of
right.
pop you get in that
And-
situation.
And what's your color too? You know, all
Yep.
that plays in too. Now let's don't leave that out.
Yeah.
honestly, I might not be sitting here if I was a different color.
Yeah. I understand. It's different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else I thought? I thought of something else that I wanted to ask about marijuana, because now when you go through the airport, don't it's a thing that smell you too?
Oh, do they? Like they
It's like you could walk through a thing or something. I don't know. I'm just
I don't I don't know.
okay.
I don't
Maybe
know.
somebody can answer.
People should definitely not be bringing it through airports. That's
Yeah.
a very big risk, because you're traveling across state lines and you're implicating the federal law at that point. And we know the federal government completely
But-
outlaws it. Doesn't even say it has any medicinal effect.
But what if they are? So you mean to tell me that if I'm legally bought it from the dispensary, then I should be able to pack it and take it with me if I'm.
That you cannot
You
do
cannot
that.
do that.
I believe you should be able to, especially
But
when
you
you're
can't.
traveling.
But
You cannot.
can't. And that's a misconception. A lot of people think that if they buy marijuana from a state where it's legalized and travel to another state where it's legalized, that should be okay, because you're going from one state to another where it's still legal.
But what about the people that's traveling with pain? And so I need
medical.
marijuana. So I need this. This is my medication.
Yeah.
So in between flight, I may have to go in the bathroom and smoke something to help me. with that. They can't do that.
No, like Jim mentioned, it implicates a lot of the federal laws because you're crossing state lines. So it just gets really messy, considering that the federal law, in terms of marijuana, is still a big no-no.
Yeah, back when they were first starting to legalize and you had dispensaries first popping up, like the federal government used to raid those places still, even though it was legal by state law. So
Wow.
yeah, they could
I got
pick and
another
choose
question.
when they want to get involved whenever they want.
Now, suppose I stop at the dispensary and buy some weed, and I want to go to Indiana and give me some cheap gas. Now, I don't know. Is it legal in Indiana? I'm not sure.
Let's check.
Don't
Yeah.
believe recreational.
Because, yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Got right here actually. Nope, not even legal medically.
Oh, wow.
It's not.
We're going to have a problem, people. You know, we like to go to the gambling boat over there, you know.
Yeah, make sure to drop the weed off at home before you get that cheap gas.
Ah,
Yeah.
wow.
Better
All right.
safe than sorry. Seems
Y'all
like.
hear that? Because, you know, the Indiana cops will get you. They might impound your car and everything.
Yeah.
That's something to think about, because, you know, a lot of Chicago people, I go over and get gas from Indiana. I don't,
Mhm.
you know, but that's a good thing. It's something to think
Yeah.
about.
Something to
Right.
think about when you're transferring it between state lines.
Yeah, do not do that.
Yeah.
Y'all been warned now. Can't say I didn't
Yeah.
tell you. All right.
I'm
Anything else about weed?
Man.
I could also just mention that at this point, 68% support recreational legalization, and 54% people have used it at some point of their lives. So,
Okay.
considering those numbers, we should definitely be moving in the direction where we're not testing it for employees, especially in non-safety sensitive positions.
Yeah.
And yeah, in general, it just needs to be more accepted along the lines of alcohol.
I had a friend who was tested for marijuana at a job at a petroleum engineering company, and they did a hair test actually.
Oh, you can't beat
That's
that.
one of
Oh
the
yeah, they
because
get you
it
on the hair
stays
test.
in there
Oh.
forever. So he had to shave his head because he had no other option if he wanted to
They
get the
couldn't
job.
pull it from somewhere else, like hair.
No,
No, they
knew-
pull it
It's
from
only
your
from the hair,
scalp.
from the
Yeah.
scalp, okay.
from
And
your
hair
scalp.
tests are really problematic too, because you don't even have to use to get in your hair.
You could be around somebody.
Yeah.
You could be
Yes.
around someone that could get in your hair.
Right.
It's if you are using, it could be in there for several months.
Yeah.
And they also have a lot of false positives. That's something else I wrote in that
Oh,
paper.
wow.
Yeah, there's studies showing that they have an excessive amount of false positives.
Yeah.
As high as, oh no, instant urine testing actually has even more. As high as 65% are false positives.
Wow.
Oh, and the loopholes people will jump through with urine testing is also so insane. Just the type of things that people are doing to pass marijuana test or to pass drug tests that test for marijuana. So, people will find a way. I think that's the other part of the whole situation is that um, clearly the usage in some fashion is benefiting the community and society if there's so much of this like inclination that people still want to partake in smoking weed. So maybe look at like the benefits of what cannabis brings to you, like kind of what Jim was saying earlier, just that push and focus on why people are smoking weed and why medical marijuana even exists. Like why have we allowed this drug to be used in a medicinal way? It clearly promotes and brings some sort of quality to people that are struggling with pain or some sort of physical ailment. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, somebody said, yeah, Indiana don't play. They're good for locking up melanated people up for nearly life on small
Melanated
offenses.
people.
They also do racial profiling. So, hey,
Okay, sure.
y'all better watch it.
In Indiana. Yep.
Yeah. Indiana. So,
Yeah, and along the lines for employment and drug testing, most of the jobs that still do drug tests, a majority of their workers are of color. So it's
Okay.
like we're just reinforcing, the whole system of using the drug laws to keep down people of color.
Yeah. And like another facet I'll bring up just about the dispensary is I was reading an article that a lot of first time cannabis users will go to a dispensary and they'll get sold on products that have a very high THC concentration. But sometimes that can be a little bit of like a gimmick because you think that, oh, if this has a higher amount of THC, I'm going to get more high. But that's actually not totally the case. Marijuana, the way it breaks down in your body is very subjective. And so it just really depends on the type of strain that you're smoking and the difference between like indica and sativa. So for first time buyers, just like a little tip, just because something has a higher THC concentration does not mean that it's more potent. And they kind of get you like that with dispensaries. Like the prices in Illinois versus Colorado are so insanely different.
Michigan as well. They're
Yeah.
really cheap.
It's so cheap.
They had such a boom on supply at one point that I had friends who lived out there and they used to tell me they would see it being sold at the flea market because there was just so much going around that it had to go
Wow.
somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
Weed at the flea market.
Right.
Well, you can get anything at the flea market, guns, weapons, everything. That's not new. They
Okay.
sell everything at the flea market.
Yeah.
You just got to know who's selling it.
Gotta know who's on.
Yeah. I know what else we're going to talk about. We could talk about expungement too as well, if you guys. Is that cool?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I've been getting a lot of calls lately. I'm like, did you guys see the video? Well, give me the number. I was like, I put it all in the video. So we're going to talk about expungement today too as well. Somebody did ask a question. Could you get that expunge off your record?
Yes.
Well, maybe you guys
There's
should
very
talk
few
about it.
things that aren't eligible these
Okay.
days. The main things that aren't eligible are like sexual offenses, animal abuse, child abuse, DUIs,
reckless
and what
driving,
else?
domestic battery.
arson.
Arson
what I
and
like.
something else.
I actually
It was
Buying a
something-
prostitute.
It was
Oh,
something
okay.
about
Buying
arson.
a
I looked it up.
prostitute.
Yeah.
The
Prostitution.
arson part, I believe, is only if you have to register, and
Yes.
Chicago never actually officially made a registry, so no one has been registered as-
Okay.
for the
Yeah.
arson list. So I don't really think that one applies.
But
Yeah,
prostitute. bad sex.
soliciting a prostitution.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
solicitation.
you are prostituting yourself, that actually can be expunged.
Right,
but
right.
soliciting a prostitute,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Can't pay for it.
violations. Yeah.
right? Yes,
So-
you can put it out there, but you can't pay for it.
Again, let's go over that list now. Let's go over the list again.
Okay, domestic battery,
Domestic battery,
DUI,
DUI,
child abuse,
child abuse,
animal abuse,
animal abuse,
and sexual offenses.
sexual offense,
Besides prostitution.
arson too, right?
That's a mixed bag.
That's
If
okay.
you register. Also with the sexual offenses, it's violations of order of protections and violation of restraining orders.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
and
So be careful
most
with
traffic
those.
offenses aren't eligible, but no petty traffic offenses like speeding.
Right.
If it rises to the level of like a level A misdemeanor, like being driving on a suspended license, that is eligible. But
Okay.
yeah, most
I got that
traffic
plenty of
offenses are
times.
not.
Yeah.
I thought I got that twice.
And
Right.
a lot of people think that if they get arrested and the case is dismissed, then that won't be on your record, but it can very well show up on your record.
It will show up
yeah.
most likely, and even
So-
arrests sometimes can show up on a rap sheet. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Now-
it's a good idea for people to view the record. if they
Now,
want
what
to
if
consider.
some of those things is not expungible? That's on your record for 30 years. It
It's
doesn't
still-
matter.
By law, they don't allow it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could
could
potentially, yeah, exactly, seek a pardon from
Okay.
the governor,
Okay.
but that's a long process, and not many people seem to have success with it from the people I've talked to.
So give us the number here, Englewood. Who I can reach you? You guys know the number?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
it's 773-488-6600.
All right. Sealing the expungement here, Englewood. So Teamwork Englewood. I'm sorry. Shout out to Teamwork Englewood for inviting me and my partner. That we navigators here and
Yes.
partner with two attorneys here. We appreciate you guys bringing this to the information. Now listen to my Black audience, y'all. Listen now. We've given this information now. Now, even if you don't have the money to get your arrest record, you guys do find that what $16 or $17?
Right, yeah.
To get
if you can't
fingerprinted.
afford to get your rap sheet, you can just come on down here. We'll write you out a money order, help you get it.
All right.
Yeah.
So you have to go get it on 35th and
And South
Correct, yeah.
Michigan,
Right.
Tuesday to
3510 South
Thursday.
Michigan. They do fingerprinting Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 8 to 1:30. Make sure you get there before 1:30 because they're going to close the window then.
Yep.
Yeah, and it costs $16, and you basically I think you just need your ID.
okay.
Yeah.
Now, what is the wait time? 2 weeks, 3 weeks, as far as getting your record and stuff?
I believe they usually take about 7 to 10 days. They'll come from two different places because one will be your Illinois state rap sheet and the other is the Chicago police rap sheet.
Okay.
Illinois one comes out of Joliet. So they basically just come from two different places in two different envelopes and about a few days apart usually, but it's 7 to 10 days.
Okay.
generally.
Then after they get that, they come to see
They
you
come
guys.
to us.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah,
you
definitely
guys
feel free to
can
give
tell
us a
them what
call.
you, okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
so it's a process, people. It's not no
It's not very
Nah.
quick and easy, but it's very worth
Worth
it.
it, right?
Right.
Yes.
Nothing with the courts usually works too
Right.
fast.
because I had a friend that I hope I shouldn't be said, but I'm gonna say it. He said it would cost him probably like 2,500 or better
Oh,
to
yeah.
get
Yeah,
that.
I've heard.
And he heard the program. He was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go that route."
Yeah.
Right. People have
Yeah.
come in and told me they paid anywhere from 1,700 to 2,500.
Yeah.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And
To
then
get
the
their
person didn't
petitions
even
in.
like stay on it, and that's why they were coming to us.
Yeah.
So as long as you're not making too much money, we could do it for free. The only thing you might have to pay for if you're over the poverty limit is the filing fee.
Okay.
And that's 150, 150, but almost no one pays.
So if
that.
you're over the poverty limit,
Yeah, it's actually 125% or lower, you would be eligible.
okay.
But you can go in front of a judge if you don't qualify to see if you can get those fees waived. And
Right.
they're pretty good about it.
Yeah, a judge can take into consideration your expenses as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that it can have some discretion there as well if you're
Yeah.
over that limit.
The only thing with going through our route is just, you're paying in time because it does take a little bit of time since we have such an influx of people. But again, it'll get done and it's really worth it because it removes all those barriers that people face with employment and housing and trying to get a loan. And so it's really helpful in that regard.
And I've seen the private attorneys that people were telling me about take even longer, do nothing, not stay in contact.
Well,
So, yeah.
I know
Yeah.
my partner and I, we sent a lot of people here on the internet. We posted it and went
Yeah, oh
live
my
and
God,
talked
it went
about.
viral.
I think you was here. I think you just probably just started. It was y'all had so many people. They told you guys don't bring them all down at one time.
Oh yeah, for the
Oh,
rap sheet
yeah.
day?
Yeah.
Right.
So
had the
we
rap
pushed
sheet
that.
day
We
event.
pushed that. Me and my
Yeah,
partner.
that was, we had a lot of responses for that. We
Right.
weren't even able to get everyone because they limited the capacity.
right.
Demand is high, and I think one of the things just we're trying to push in Illinois, I personally think that once you are going through a court case and going through that whole process, at the end of it, somebody should mention to you, whether that be the judge or clerk, that, hey, this is an option for relief that you have once you're eligible. So people just know, because I know there's like a large population that is completely unaware that they can even do this with their records. So I bring up the term expungement and sealing when I explain to somebody what I'm doing for work, and they're like, what is that? Oh, I didn't know that you could go and get your background cleared. So this is an option, and
Okay.
it's available.
Question 2.
Mhm.
Vera probably can answer this. What is the difference between sealing and expungement? That is a difference now.
Yes, there is. Sealing is basically for convictions, and it limits who can see it, but it doesn't get rid of it completely. So a agency like law enforcement, or say if you were trying to work at a facility that took care of elderly people and you had elderly abuse on your record, they might be able to see that.
Or kids.
Correct.
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't be able to see it. The general public can't see it. Most employers can't see it. Landlords can't see it. But it's still there for like law enforcement, so it could affect like your concealed carry application and things like that. With expungement, it's mainly for dismissals, and they just get rid of the record entirely.
Destroy it.
I got some
physically.
bad news. I heard a person say that most of these companies' employers, they go through law enforcement agencies, so they can get it if they go through the law.
It's actually even worse than that, because there's private people who keep records of these things once it's public.
Right.
And there's no like course of action for someone to take to get them to remove that information. So even if you got everything expunged, it could still be out there because
It could
that
still be
private
out there.
entity has it.
Uh-huh.
So you know what? Just to kind of stay a little bit back before we close out,
Mhm.
let's just kind of go over some of the laws that if you just
Talked
kind of
about.
talked about as far as weed is concerned. Know your rights, so we can sum things up and us closing out.
Yeah.
Let's kind of
Just
1,
do
2,
like
3,
a little
4, 5.
rundown.
A little rundown.
Yeah. Well, we got a few
So-
more minutes, so we got about a good 10 more minutes. So we,
Oh,
Okay, but no, I mean,
Yeah,
as we
close.
running some of them down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did talk about that legislation, the bill that is being proposed right now in Illinois. It's going through the Senate. It's called the Right to Privacy in the Workplace Act. So it provides that an employer may not refuse to hire an individual or discipline an employee because results of an individual's drug test indicate the presence of THC. So remember, there's a lot of implications behind that, and it's not as straightforward, but at least it's if this passes, the discrimination you can face depending on the employment for testing positive for THC will not be enforced. And then what else did we talk about?
Traveling.
Mostly that.
Across
Oh, yeah,
state lines
traveling.
with marijuana. Yeah, don't do that. It's
Yeah.
bad. The federal government has control once you cross state lines. So got to be real careful there.
Where you smoke your weed.
Right. Don't smoke in public places. It's
Not even in your
legal.
car.
Not
Nope,
even in
your
car.
Because, I noticed some of my friends smoke weed, and you get in their car and they have a duck or something inside the ashtray. So that's nothing we need to talk
Yeah.
about, because that's illegal.
And renters, I think specifically, because such a large population of people rent, you can't smoke inside of a rental, and you can't have open paraphernalia out either. I actually had a friend who got a citation because they violated the terms of their lease, because the maintenance came up to fix something and they saw that she had some paraphernalia related to marijuana out on her coffee table.
Wow.
And some agencies are a little bit more lax. They may give you a warning, but some management rental companies will be on you about that. So be really, really careful about where you smoke your weed.
Yeah, with the landlords, it's up to their discretion entirely. They could allow it, but most probably don't.
Yeah, and it's in your lease. They will explicitly say you can't in your lease. So
And did we just cover testing as far as job is related, as far as employment?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's some limitations right now, but like we were saying with that bill, we're hoping that those protections go a little bit further. basically the problem with it now is that there's just too much subjectivity to saying for the employer to say whether someone's impaired or not. So defining that a little bit more closely would be important.
Yeah.
And just generally, we should work towards not requiring drug tests for employment in states that have it legalized.
I fully agree with that.
All right.
Still test for other drugs, but
Oh, there's a couple of new laws I would like to mention too, real quick.
Okay.
They're not that big of a topic, but lots of times people were stopped, for having something hanging from their windshield.
Oh yeah,
and that's-
that. Yeah, I
it's-
remember that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's a
Yeah.
pretense basically for the
Yeah.
cops to stop whoever they want.
Right.
Lots of people have it on there. They
Right.
apply that whenever they feel like.
Right.
So they're not able to do that anymore.
Oh, okay. So I
That
put my
can't
thing
be
back.
the sole reason they stop.
Okay.
We're still going to have a problem because they can make up whatever they
Yeah.
want and they could point to something else.
Right.
But
At
at
least
least
with
there's
that.
one fewer thing that they could
Right.
do as a pretense to stopping you. And then also a little bit more interesting was courts are now prohibited from ordering you not to use cannabis or alcohol during probation, conditional discharge, or supervision, unless basically your offense was drug related.
Okay.
So the limitation there's pretty.
That's pretty
I'm all
great.
for that
Yeah.
because we don't need to be sending people back to prison just for smoking a legal product.
Right. That makes sense. That makes sense.
yeah, that's a big one actually.
That's a win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if depending on what you got caught for, if you
Right. If you got, a possession charge,
Yeah.
then they could still
Right.
limit you.
Depending on like the underlying nature of your offense.
Right.
they could
Right.
still
It basically,
be-
element of the offense has to be related to drugs, though. So any of those other things that have nothing to do with drugs, they can't order you to stop smoking or drinking.
Y'all hear that now? Y'all listen. Don't come be calling me and saying like, Mark, no. What's the address here too as well? Too.
Oh yeah.
It's 815 West 63rd Street, Chicago, Illinois, 60621. We're in Englewood.
The second floor of the U.S. Bank, Suite 2.
All right, y'all here. So come on, get some help. And listen, trust me, they're not going to give me your name, whatever you get. They're not going to do that. It's all confidential. So,
Right.
so they do have they are governed by rules here. So,
Yeah.
and these are two attorneys. Yeah,
What
counsel.
goes on
Yeah.
and what goes on in here stays in here.
Yeah.
Attorney-client confidentiality.
That's right. Attorney. That's right. So that's basically they people. What is something else I had to say about the weed? Also, isn't it a law that they don't want you smoking cigarettes with a 3-year-old in the car, newborn or something? Do you guys know? Can you look at that?
Oh,
I
Yeah.
believe that
Look
was
that up.
made a law.
Yeah, that was made.
maybe
Yeah,
a few years
but I see
ago,
it.
was it?
Yeah, that was a few years ago. Just smoking a regular cigarette inside the car with the newborn or somebody like a child. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense. But if they if they do it in the house,
Right.
I guess what difference does it make in the car? But I mean, it is what it is.
Well, at least this is from the National Institute of Health, though. So I don't know if this
Okay.
is accurate legally, but it says while several states have banned smoking in cars when children are present, there's still no national legislation that protects children from involuntary exposure to secondhand smoke in public places, work sites, and areas where children cannot escape such exposure, such as inside cars and homes.
All right. I'm just trying to help us out, people.
Yeah.
I'm just trying because that
Good.
they make the laws for us and they show enough exercise them on us. So you got to know the law. If you don't know the game, you don't know how to play it. You got to know the rules.
And it looks like those things that you think that you should be able to do, and you can't because again,
So true.
traveling. If I'm getting weed from the dispensary because of my health issues, and if I decide that I'm traveling with it, I would think that I should be able to travel with it, but you can't.
Nope.
Yeah.
Let's give me. So what is the difference between medical marijuana and a dispensary weed? Is it a difference? It's a wordplay. What is it?
Well, medical is basically what you're using it for. The dispensary can sell to people either medicinally or recreationally.
Okay.
Some focus on one or the other more. But
But the
Big-
strains are different too. The strains at dispensaries that are medical, at least by what they say, they sell people who have a medical ID a different strain of marijuana that they'll sell people who are just recreationally using it. And they'll sell it by saying that it has properties that are supposed to specifically help with your medical ailment that you're seeking it for.
yeah, medicinal strains tend to have more CBD because that is the chemical that they found a lot of evidence to promote for medicinal uses. So yeah, there's some difference, but basically it's the same thing.
Yeah. And it's cheaper with a medical card.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it
cheap.
is.
Wow. So we've learned a lot of things. I think it was one more thing. Also, yeah, Explain that to us real quick before we get out of here. Probably got maybe a minute or two. About if you don't own the apartment, the house, you can't be smoking weed inside the
Oh,
apartment. Explain
yeah.
that again to
So
my
if
audience.
you are a tenant in a residential building that you are renting, so just to clarify, you don't own it. You have like a lease that you're living in. You are not allowed to smoke marijuana inside of your resident. And I will say it is lease dependent. So some managements may allow you to. So you just have to look through that part of your lease. But as my knowledge, most of them don't allow you to do that. So just because it's legal in Illinois, you just can't be smoking it in your apartment. But if you're in somewhere that you own, or if you're in a residence that somebody else owns and they allow you to smoke, then that's totally fine.
Right.
Quick question,
I just
too.
want to say, if you're a medicinal user, you might want to talk to your landlord about this.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point.
Now,
They-
what if
they should work with you a little bit.
Now, what if I live in a high rise, which I don't, and somebody want to smoke weed? They want to stand out in front of the building. Is that legal?
No, you can't be out in public.
public.
So
You can't be
Okay.
doing it on the
if you're in a
sidewalk.
house like in your backyard, that's
Right.
different. If you're on, but yeah, once you're on public property, things change.
So no smoking on trains, bus terminals.
No.
No.
No smoking on the L.
And your car
Wow.
Or your car. Yeah, that's another one.
or in your
Yeah,
rented
that-
apartment. Yeah,
The car
So
actually
it's,
presents
so it's a
addition-
trick. If to me, it's just like a trick and a trick and a trick.
No,
baby.
but you have to know the rules. If you
gotta
don't know
know-
the rules,
Know your rights.
know your rights.
And-
That's-
Be extra safe with the driving aspect because
Right.
you can get charged with DUI as well as possession.
wow,
So you
that's
gotta be
real
careful.
serious, especially with weed. Do you somebody?
And then I'm looking up how much you can possess at one time legally, and you can have up to 30 grams. So I said
Okay,
20
that's a
earlier.
little bit more than
So
an
it's a
ounce.
little bit more than
Yeah.
an ounce,
A little bit more than an
Yeah.
ounce. Sometimes they weigh with it might well they give I guess they give them the bag, the plastic that it's in.
Yeah.
Give it, because sometimes you can have an ounce of weed, but with the plastic it weighs more than the weed. Because they ain't gonna take the weed out before they're gonna just put the whole thing on there and say that. So
Yeah.
wow, this is interesting. So again, let's go over and we can end it with the sponsorship and selling real quick. What did we talked about, and we can end it.
Okay, yeah, your first step, if you want to get started with your process with us, you just go get your rap sheets from 3510 South Michigan. They're open Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 8 to 1:30. You'll be fingerprinted there and you'll pay $16. If you can't afford that $16, feel free to come by and we'll write you a money order. And after that point, once you receive both of the Illinois state rap sheet and the Chicago police rap sheet in the mail, you can give us a call and we'll schedule it for an appointment. And that number was 773-488-6600.
All right.
Mhm.
So I think not only did we really go over some good stuff, we
Mhm.
repeated it a few times.
Yes.
And the reason we repeated it is because if you hear it
thank you,
once,
Vera.
you may forget.
Right.
But if you
Yeah.
hear it 2 or 3 times, it'll stick.
Thank you, Vera. Thank you.
That is true.
Thank you, Vera, so much. Yeah, thank you. I want to say to Teamwork Englewood, thank you. Thank you, my partner and I. We've navigated this here, but just want to thank you guys for,
Thank
sharing
you.
this with us. Yeah.
For
appreciate you
doing
putting
this.
the information out there.
Right.
Nice.
And the people, do me a favor, make sure you like this video. Please like this video and share it. It will save somebody time. I tell you, from doing time or getting a record, or trust me, it will. You be calling Martin Johnson, when you was interviewing, can you tell me? No, you got to pay attention. I can walk the horse to the well, but if the horse don't drink out the well, that's all I can do.
Yeah.
I gave you 2 attorneys here, my partner, Vera and I, we gave you all the necessary information. Now, what you do with it is on you guys.
We're just spreading the knowledge over here.
That's all we do.
Spreading the love.
Spreading the
Yes.
love. All right, people, that concludes it.
Yes.
That concludes. We've been on here, 48 minutes? I think
Oh,
that's
wow.
great.
Sounds good.
All right. All right, people.
You
this is-
already know what it is.
What is it?
Live, uncut, unedited. Tell the truth and shame the devil. I love being black.
All right, people. Thank y'all so much. Thank you again, Mark Mitchell, Teamwork Englewood, for sharing this. 2 counselors with us. Thank